This is the Non-Tech Podcast, conversations about education, technology, and culture, with Dr. Doug Reed and Dr. Matt Stranick. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Dr. Doug Reed, and I am located on Abagway, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
My name is Dr. Matthew Stranick, and I am located in Menakwisk in St. John, New Brunswick, which is situated on the traditional and unceded territory of the Wolastoqiyik Maliseet people.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday evening, because that's where we are right now and when. This is episode 35 of the Non-Tech Podcast. Matt Stranick here, and as ever, Doug Reed, my compatriot. We have a confederacy of awesomeness here. How's everybody doing? How are you doing, Doug? How's your week been?
Work was great, and I had some other trauma that I'll get into a bit later, but I was going to change the topic of this episode because I was so annoyed at some stuff I had to deal with outside of work. But I didn't, because that's not fair to you.
Well, man, what you're doing is putting up, color me curious now as to that. But I appreciate your being in your fiduciary duty or whatnot. To the original concept, which I have to say I was quite intrigued. I'll just say the title this time because it's about, everybody, get ready for this.
Okay.
Attention and learning and technology. And my first thought was, whoa, that's huge. My second thought was, that's actually quite awesome. My third thought was, that sort of thinks maybe we're going to go into some kind of AI or cognitivist kind of discussion. And my very last one was, man, did I do something wrong? Was the show notes kind of off or whatever? But that's clearly just me. So anyways, what was the impetus there, friend?
I got sucked into Facebook, those little videos and stuff that come up on your feed these days. And one of the things that popped up was from Richard Feynman. And it was a post that said, knowledge is free, isn't free, you have to pay attention. And because it's the internet, I didn't know if he actually said that. So that led me down a rabbit hole to find out. And sure enough, I found one of the images I shared that'll be on the website is a Twitter or X post or whatever it was from 2021, where he posted exactly that. And then I realized I had stuff to do. And all my attention was taken up with finding out the legitimacy of that quote. And then I thought, what better than let's take a look at that? Because that led me to other areas that we will go into later when it comes to attention and how hard education and post-secondary studies and all that can be if you don't, when you have to struggle to pay attention to stuff. So that's where that's all coming from.
Well, let me tell you, that all sounds fascinating and intriguing. I don't know. I'm thinking of this as like our episode of Twin Peaks. It's like a mystery going on here from the way you framed it, between the personal processes that went into this. So I'm really just going to say I prepped. Again, I was telling Doug beforehand, I'm like, I like to think I'm getting more proactive about the outputs for this show now that I've kind of settled into my routine and my work and my personal life and whatever. So like I don't want to, I'm congratulating myself. I've been like writing the show notes largely and just largely almost ready to go completely. And beforehand. And to me, that's just like, it took us over a year and 33 episodes or so to get here, but I'm glad to finally be in that habit. And I'm also glad that we're back into like doing this basically once every week, or I think 3 times a week would be reasonable for this, or 3 times a month rather. 3 times
a month. Yeah.
3 times a month. Pardon me. 3 times a week. That would involve fentanyl or. Anyway, so please, so I also prep these little handy notes. So I've actually just managed to. I've been sending myself, like, I'm the most non-technological person in terms of when it comes to just keeping stuff. I just email myself resources all the time, and they just sit there. And then eventually I'll action on them. I'll either delete them or else I'll put it into this show or whatever. And in terms of the attention thing, the topic that you've come up with here, I found a couple of things like just it's nice getting them into the show notes. Things like the fact that the government of Canada has now they've come up with guidelines for the federal use of AI. Like, it has to follow certain parameters and conceptual frameworks, and they have this awesome acronym for it, and it's called the acronym. And I'll just embed the rest in the notes, or we can talk about it later. But it literally is the acronym for good practices with regards to federal use of AI from the government of Canada, mind you. Faster, like Usain Bolt, faster.
Yep.
That's us outrunning the AI. That's us, like, Skynet is militarizing, with the AI, and we're keeping ahead of it with ethical practice, and we'll just, somehow subvert it so that so I was like, that's probably long overdue, and it isn't really even particularly, it's like 15 minutes to scope the whole thing. And it's one of those things I saw piped into me, speaking of things you find on the internet, Doug, and social media. It was just something I found on LinkedIn. Somebody I follow on LinkedIn presented that. So I don't know, man. I thought some of the stuff I could locate fits in well with your topic here, pal.
Yeah, thanks. Now, I have a question for you when it comes to attention.
Yes.
When you wrote your thesis, right? Because you got that document, it lives out there.
It does.
How did you put it together? Like, how did you steal that time from the rest of your life? Like, what processes, if you don't mind sharing, did you put together? How did you partition that time?
You know what? I would like to think that I could have been intentional about it. But I'll just, and this is not like, oh, woe is me, or oh, wow is me. It's neither of those. But I'll just, to give you a snapshot of what it was, I was in about my 4th or 5th year being in CNAQ. So I was working full time, and I completed a master's degree, and my kids were both born within a 3-year period. And that overlapped with when I began the doctoral program at the University of Calgary. So in addition to working full time, and you get summer holidays, but still, it's a program designed in such a way where you do the residency during the summer, and then, just like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 very intense weeks on site. And then, the rest of it's largely remote. So it was like, so full-time study, full-time job, full-time dad to 2, toddler and underage kids. Plus, I had the audacity, or the beans, I guess, to actually, additionally to that, teach like a couple of sections of a grad level course for UNB in instructional design, because they have the thing where, like, newly, people who get past their defense depending their proposal, their first exam, whatever, the doctoral program, you can then technically, you can get a preferential so you can build some experience and teach some stuff to graduate students at that level. So all of which was incredibly rewarding, but I have no friggin' sweet clue how I did it. I think I just really, A, didn't sleep much, B, drank a lot of beer, and really just focused on my kids as kind of the positive points, where I kind of just, everything was sort of, they were first in the equation under all circumstances for both me and their mom. And their mom was extremely supportive. Doug, I think you know the value of having a supportive partner while this stuff is going on. Whatever side of that you happen to be on is what I mean. For me, that was my kid's mom. We're not together anymore, but props to Mounier for just being very, very, supportive on all aspects of the academic and the parenting endeavor. But now we're doing mediation and we're almost divorced, but legally. But anyway, Doug, so yeah, thanks for the ask. I hope that didn't ramble so far into the weeds to be not useful at all.
No, thank you for that, because my experience was quite different. Like, I left teaching, did my master's, and I wasn't in a relationship, and I thought, if I'm going to do a PhD, I have to do it now, where I can be incredibly selfish and just commit myself to it. Because
Good for you.
Me, it was like running a marathon. Like, when you run a marathon, right, you have to be selfish with your time, because you got to get the long runs in, and you got to get the speed work. I hurt myself. I tried to do 3, and I hurt myself in training for all 3 of them. So it was one of those things. It was, okay, I'm not putting the time in to do the right things because I keep hurting myself. But when I wrote my thesis, like the actual writing, after I collected my data, I did most of it in a hammock because I was in Australia. It was warm, and Wi-Fi really wasn't a thing down there. So I set up a goal of 3 pages a day when I was doing my drafts of my thesis. So every day for 3 hours, or every day I got 3 pages done, regardless of how long it took. There was a couple of days where I pounded it out in like an hour, and a couple of days it was 14 hours, and I was still trying to get through my 3 pages. But that hammock made all the difference to my attention, because I didn't have an internet connection. So everything was on this laptop that I borrowed. And it was just, I'll sit on the hammock, and it was nice. And I had the smallest deck on the face of the earth, right? Like I was living in student accommodations and stuff. So I had a little teeny deck outside, but that's how I partitioned that time and how I set up the rules just to make it happen. And it just goes back to the Feynman quote about knowledge not being free. You have to pay attention. And it just sucked me into the whole concept of attention. And people were saying, how can you pump out so much? And I had friends of mine that would just get manic, and they'd write like 40 pages in 35 hours and then pass out for 2 days, right? Like they were just monsters that way. And I was like, nope, I just
grabbed scraps of time
every day.
That's what I remember. I was just like, any minute that I can work at this, I'll be honest, I did a lot of it at work. I just figure this is considered legitimate professional development. So, I mean, I'm doing full-time work, but I sort of, I felt rightfully, I think, that at the places that I work, they benefited from me being in those programs. So I had no compunction about, you know what, I know I should be working on some other project, but I'm going to take half of the day or a day and a half in the office during main time and just do this stuff. And that potentially sometimes went into the night having an office. I think if I think on it now, having a separate office from where I lived was really beneficial. When I was finishing up my master's degree. Actually, I did my whole master's degree there. And also, as well, I did sort of half of my doctorate in Qatar and then half of it in Ontario. And in both cases, I had an office to go to because it was pre-COVID and everybody just worked in offices mostly. And that was, I just stayed there, like I camp out sometimes. I go in over the weekend I do stuff on the weekend. So this is where I say, the fact that my spouse was supportive was just, I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise, right? So.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah,
because
man.
when I couldn't get my 3 pages done and it was sunny, then I would go to my office, because they gave me an office too, because I was a grad student. And one of my best friends in Australia, his name is Rob, he was the security guy. And he would come around at like 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m, just to make sure I was okay. And he'd wander in and we'd chat for a while.
A wellness check.
And that was like a regular thing. Yeah, it was a nice wellness check. So that was part of the attention. It's like, how did we get through this? Because people go through all kinds of things, and this learning is hard. Right? It just is. So how do you make sure you keep your attention, which is where the rabbit hole took me this week. So
when I can tell you
article from 8.
Please do.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say.
Please tell me what you were going to tell me.
I think I just provided an example of what I was going to say, is that people look at me and they go, that guy is the poster child of needing to focus attention. I've heard that throughout my life at various times, and in all circumstances, I just kind of got to say, if I were you, I would think that too. Anyway, pal.
Yeah, that wasn't. Yeah, I gotta say, in the movie that is my life, you're not the center. You're not the star. It's me. So I picked the topic based on my stuff, no judgments on you there.
Man, if we need more abject examples, we can provide them, I'm sure. And you got some really awesome references here, pal. You do. So you were talking about James
from 1890, from 130 some years ago, right? It was the earliest example I could find of a definition of attention in any of the literature. And it's like, taking possession of the mind in clear and vivid form implies withdrawal from some things in order to deal effectively with others. And it was like, yeah, that's what it is. And James loved the word withdrawal. Like, sorry, I'm saying like a lot now, so I don't want to get sucked into that. But he said withdrawal like 126 times in this article, like, because it was like a big, massive book and stuff. But it was somebody finally coming to grips. So before 1890, we didn't have a real definition. It was like before the 1700s, there was no definition of the color blue, right? What did we do before then? What did we call coups d'etats before the French came up with a good definition that we just ripped off? It's how did we get here is what I'm trying to take a look at. Sorry, I think I rambled a little bit, but I just love finding definitive definitions, finding that one piece of literature from way back at the beginning, that seminal piece. I'm the academic nerd that loves that stuff.
Man, I am.
And are you still with me?
I am, man. I realized like I was stepping in too much, so now I'm trying to mitigate that by making sure, by just sort of letting you have your full, making sure. So I don't want to step in. And there's also a slight delay in the interchange or whatever between where we are, and I'm just trying to like navigate that, because at my end it feels like I'm about a half of a second slower than you, and that's not just some metaphor for me being slow, although it does apply, but it actually, I think, is a factual aspect of the personal educational infrastructure, TM, that we're working with here, right? So I'm just trying to be like, I'll give some broad and wide areas where I'm just not going to say anything. So I just think that is highly awesome and legit for a Friday night episode that you have a reference from 1890. And that's just rock and roll the ed tech. I was thinking, which is probably not a great idea on a Friday night, but this is like the first time in a while that I felt like I'm doing ed tech-ish things at work lately, things to do with user experience, agile project management. Those are the areas that I'm kind of going into lately at work, which is a very interesting perspective. The workplace outside of post-secondary, it's like, whoa. Private sector, ostensibly, again, it's kind of a paradigm shift, right? So it's just like, yeah, soak it up. I don't know if I'm going to be here the rest of my career. I don't know. Like, it's literally up, I hope to continue in my present role for as long as possible, but I'm still mid-career. I'm planning to go on until I'm 70 if I can help it. So what about you, Doug? Since I'm just bringing us way off tangent here, when do you plan to retire? Do you have any set notion of it, or like you're not really kind of giving any thought?
I'll think about it the day after I don't have a mortgage. Is kind of what I'm looking at, or when I really start to not enjoy what I'm doing. That's what I'm looking at. It's if I can enjoy it and I can help it, that is my dharma. That is my reason for being, that I've accepted. So how can I help people? Let's do that through education. So, but along that same line, my topic, you nicely brought me to the stress that I've had to deal with for the last couple of days. I went to LinkedIn, and I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. Like, it's either wonderful or Anyway, a person I know in a previous life posted a thing saying, hey, this institution is looking for people to teach in their online master's program for education. You should apply because I know you're interested. And so I said, oh, okay, great. So I started to do the process, and I haven't had to apply for a job in a while. It's been a while. I already had a resume, like basically ready, like a little touch-up resume, takes a few minutes. It took me 6 hours to apply for a sessional job, like not a full-time job, like 3 hours a week for a semester. It took me 6 hours of going through and trying to go through the user interface. And I got like knocked out or unenrolled or unlogged in or whatever the term was they were using 9 times in 6 hours.
Wow.
They had questions. There was no cover letter. It was, but answer these questions, but make sure this is super obvious in your resume. And it's like, okay, so I got to redo my resume. And then these questions pop up. Here, answer these 5 questions. And they're not small questions. It's like, talk about your philosophy of education and how it can be impacted by like collaborating interdisciplinarily. And it's like, right. Okay, that's not a minor question. So I've learned never to just type stuff into these boxes, right? Like I'll put them into like a Google Doc or a Word document first, so I could save them and copy and paste and stuff. So I write up the answers to all these questions. I drop them in. I'm pretty happy with them. I'm a little annoyed because I'm at like 3 hours at this point, but I do it. And then I get all these warning things back saying, no, this is too long. No, that's too long. And in the boxes for these super large questions, these like deep thinking big questions, oh yeah, you only get 300 characters. So 300 characters works out to about like 130, 140 words. How can I describe my philosophy of education in one old Twitter post? Like I can't do it. I can't do justice to it. So I had all these big answers, and then I had to cut them down to make them fit these stupid things, these stupid boxes. And then I got logged out again a couple of times. Every time I'm not on their website for 10 minutes, I get logged out again. And every time I get logged out, I have to log back in and start the application from the beginning. And then he grabs stuff from LinkedIn and dumps it in there instead of the resume I prepared. 6 hours of my life, like Wednesday night, Thursday night, and just before now, that's why I'm still steaming, has been dealing with just having the chance to teach a class, maybe, at this unnamed institution. And it just reminded me of what it was like not to have a job and me having to do this over and over and over. And it's like, oh my goodness, just that peace of mind made some of the stuff that drives me nuts at my current job just go away. It was like, yeah, nope, that's not bad. I can deal with that. So sorry, I've gone on a rant, and I would love your feedback.
No, man, everything you say is legit. I really do appreciate how you've kind of hit a couple of things that I think would actually make pretty cool episodes in and of themselves. For instance, the precarity of sessional instructors. Sorry, I didn't catch necessarily every single detail of the narrative, but the 6 hour to apply for it, I think actually an interesting episode could be just, screenshotting that and just like, oh yes, and at this juncture, this level of dysfunction happened with the thing, and you could like put it up on a, H5P or a website and just like, this is what failure looks like at an interface level in all aspects, right? Like just here you go, with your. So did you say though, pal, which is it, an American, Canadian, or other institution? Can you be more specific?
I didn't say.
No, okay, that's fine.
I don't want to get into that.
Can you say it's Canadian or not Canadian? Can you say that? Or
yes,
won't even go that far.
It is
okay,
Canadian.
Don't want to jinx it. It is. Okay.
That's it.
There we go.
Yeah.
There are, I don't even know what's a reliable number of post-secondary institutions in Canada. Like 200? That's literally the first number that came to my mind. Oh, there's got to be at least 200, but who the hell knows, right? So,
yeah, there's like 130 some colleges. So
right, because Ontario has a pretty lot of colleges, for starters.
Well, they're huge. Yeah.
Yeah, like the systems that are there, right? So, okay, well, that's what I thought of based on what you told me, man. And I also think, in terms of all that, you've really kind of added to, in terms of the precarity of the post-secondary workforce, like how low we have sunk, sort of, to have to jump, and then like just to make the how much it completely favors the employer in all aspects, and yeah, it's sort of a failure of the collective labor union or the collective labor movement within unions, post-secondary unions. I think labor unions. I'm not in one anymore, so I was heavily involved in a union, which again, like, not the cool thing to do when you're like just starting out in your role. Just like, I was literally just like, I can put my name up for this, and it'll go uncontested, and then I'll get to do some stuff, see some stuff, participate, whatever. And it's just like nobody else will put their name up a second time, so I'm like, fine. Nobody was telling me not to, but I could just, it's like, man, things I wouldn't necessarily do that way again. So, for instance, right, always a thorny notion there when you get to talk about collective labor. Anyhow, pal.
And we need to come back to that because we have similar experiences, but I didn't want to throw a wrench in it before we even started.
Oh yeah, like how to ruin a Friday. Start talking about politics on the internet. Like, nah, okay, we can do better on a Friday. We can friggin' do better. Okay, so what about this Gottlieb J? We've gone from 1890 to 2012. Yep.
Yeah, so I jumped 120 some years, and it's significant questions remain about the nature of attention, purpose, and neural mechanisms.
Dang.
Okay.
True that.
Is it? Yeah, it's. What do you mean? It's 130 years later. In that time, the human race figured out how to fly and get to the moon and back, and figured out how atomic power worked, right? Like, we did a lot of stuff in that 130 years. You think this might have been a priority for some people, right? Let's get more focus and more attention by everybody. There could be a value to that.
And then the best we can do is get Elon Musk on a podcast smoking weed and talking about how his AI chip that is going to be whatever is like just going to be the best thing to happen to the human consciousness since the invention of coffee, I guess. I don't know. Like, I would like to just see Elon Musk recede way the hell back from the public consciousness. Like, if I could just go on the internet and sort of hit my 6 or 7 or 4 regular sites without seeing any content about him whatsoever, I think I would be well pleased, quite frankly. You know what I mean?
And I've done that. I just don't go near any sites that he's going to be at because I don't value what he has to say. I don't believe he's a positive force for adding to the situation, the conversation.
The last thing I'll say before we go to another reference, I hope, is just because this is a great Friday night topic, actually, come to think of it, is I couldn't believe it. I saw a thing that said he's only been in charge of Twitter for like just over a year. That's insane. Yep. It feels, you just look at that like it was chugging along, doing what it did for 8 or 10 years, 12 years, whatever it was. You know, it got started in 2012 or something. And it's just like more or less the same kind of thing. You know, you get some questionable like, oh, well, why don't they ban Trump? That's hate speech. And, you know, reasonable rhetorical discourse, even though a lot of trolling, you know, had to happen. But I could still go, yeah, I can see kind of why this is potentially helpful and why people want to engage with it. I didn't really care for it myself. You know, I finally just deleted the account because I just didn't like it enough to want to be involved. But then he got onto it, and it just turned into like very immediately just this heaping dumpster fire of a platform. And it's just like every time I see something, I'm like, really? That's going on with it too? And I guess my amazement is that people just still use it. And it's still like when you go to like just CBC News or whatever, your choice of the Toronto Star, I think I'm going to share that on, you know, whatever my thing is. So you hit the share array. And some of them just like legitly put the little X, right? The little manicured little, you know, little X, you know, for their, it's just, man, just cut it off. Just chunk them off at the X, right? Anyway, speaking of tirades, speaking of rants, shall we move on in the thing you got prepped here, pal?
Sure. I feel a little bad about sharing the Bester and Brand 2013 article.
Okay, why is that?
It's about the effects of technology on learner attention and achievement in the classroom. And it talks about how, technology can help with attention and might help motivate students. Which, sure, yes, it can do that. I'm doing that with my phone right now. I have focus mode on my iPhone, and it turns all my apps off at 9:30 at night. So I'm not sitting up all night playing Sudoku or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've just started doing that a couple of weeks ago. Huh. It helps. It helps me anyway.
Technology for mental health. That's cool. That's
yeah.
You got to be proactive.
So I like that part of the message.
Yeah.
Yes, because in the past I haven't been, and I paid, so I'm very protective of it now. Now, for the listeners, if you go to the website, I have shared a chart.
It's a hell of a chart.
I'm hoping Matt will put up.
I'm definitely going to put it up.
I hate it so much. I think it is like,
Brad. Why? Why do you hate it? Like,
for so many reasons. I have no idea what it says. Like, I love those Venn diagrams that we put out. I keep trying to say Zen diagrams.
Venn diagrams are rad.
I will
agree with you.
Yes. I believe that if a chart or diagram is well thought out and well conceived, it's obvious. This just hurts my head. And then you add all kinds of colors, and I can see some of them, and then you add all kinds of shapes, and then there's some other stuff going on in there. Yeah.
Quick question. Are you sensorily anomalous in your color perception?
I think that's a nice way to say it. Yeah.
You are. Okay. Not that it matters and not that you got to disclose, but since we're speaking to, matters of attention, acuity, graphic design, semantic design, how meaning's constructed on a neural level, which is, again, I'm just like, really? This is like picking a Stanley Kubrick movie to watch on a Friday night. Like, wow, like all that and a bag of chips. Yep. I mean, like, okay. So can you just speak to then, however briefly or however you feel, about the nature of your sensory thing? Because I think we've spoken about it on the show before, but maybe not. I'm a little vague on that.
Yeah, no, that's no problem.
Okay.
I see a small fraction of the green that everybody else sees. Right? Okay. That's what I see. The red receptors in my eyes, like, just flood the green receptors. So, like, when I put those in chroma glasses on, it tones the red down, and so then I can see green. But my goodness, it helps. It helps me in so many parts of my life. Like, when I get dressed in the morning, I never think about the color of stuff because I don't care, because I can't see it. Right? I just don't care. All my work pants are blue. My shirts are like white or red. And that's it. I'm done. I don't have to look at these combinations and these structures. And sometimes people are like, wow, are you colorblind? And I'm like, could be. Just don't care. Or I'm that age now. When people hit that hurdle when they get to a certain age and they start going to Walmart in sweatpants and stuff. Yeah, I'm not quite there. But color-wise, I hate any diagram that is color dependent.
Well, okay. In that case, I can see. Thank you for that detailed, personal disclosure, which I appreciate that. I can see in that case, then, yes, I would say strictly from that standpoint, it's an abomination. My first appearance at it and how I look at it is, it's like I'm not even looking at the wording or the labels. I'm just thinking that looks like a 1950s robot. That's what I thought. I'm like, that's like, that was literally just like somebody in the 1947, they put that on the cover of a pulp magazine, and just away you go, right? That was kind of my feeling on it, more or less. So you put that atrocious thing there, that beastly graphic in there. Why then, pal?
Because I like the article. And they said so many good things. And normally when I share diagrams or charts or whatever, images, right, there's a point, and I like all of those.
Diagram? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to be the person that always shows up and shares the good thing. I wanted to give an example of something that I just didn't like. Because I would hate anybody to think, oh, that Doug, he likes everything. Because I don't.
Has it been a tough week, pal? Can I ask? I mean, you're kind of like, I don't know, man. I hate to see you putting yourself. You're not putting yourself down, but I feel like a couple more steps away from putting yourself down is where you might be, right? It's like it's chill, man.
No, this is the first 5-day week I've worked in like a month. And I've still got this cold. Like, I'm still on decongestants. I'm still taking like what are the ones that taste so bad but they work?
Fisherman's
not
Friend.
Halls, the other ones. Fisherman's Friends. The ones that you once described as a beverage a couple episodes, like 15 episodes
You can
ago.
actually get the non-horrible tasting ones, the lemon or cherry tasting ones, which during the winter I just pop them even if I don't have anything going on. I I chew on halls, just like lemon halls, pretty much. Actually, I'm never not chewing on halls, right? So, anyway, how to age gracefully in your 40s? Yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remember my 40s. But I want to jump to the last one. I want to jump to Lodge and Harris in 2019.
Okay.
And because we're the Ed Non-Tech podcast, I wanted to bring the technology more into the focus of this last bit. And they have some examples of how technology impacts how people acquire, update, and correct their understandings. And the cool bit that I just loved is the examples they had of how technology is going to ruin everything. And if you go back far enough, the printing press had the exact same PR that AI does now, right? The printing press, it's going to mean more books. That means people aren't going to have to remember as much, right?
Well,
we don't want that because that's not going to be good for students.
And it destabilized many other longstanding institutions, not to mention the religious communities, because suddenly you had printable versions of the various iterations of holy texts, and it was and then you're not even like a few more hundreds of years away, and they're burning piles of James Joyce Ulysses because it's obscene, and that's actually a high point if you look at it in a certain way for literature. And then, by gum, even 100 more years pass, and then that's why it's like everyone's like Zuckerberg's an asshole, and it's like yeah, probably, but he did switch on something that pretty much 3/4 of the world uses. Same with Bill Gates. It's like fine, he's a ridiculous thing, but he devised something that's shaped all of our lives in ways that we're just never gonna get out of, right? So it's like fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Cool. I like this graphic you got here.
Just really
this is awesome. This is rad. What did you do there, pal? What?
Which one? The motivation, attention, learning?
Yeah.
That first graphic?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just got to the point. It was such a counterpoint to that other diagram I shared earlier. But it was just yeah. I'm assuming that's some kind of papyrus thing. I'm not really sure. But I realized how true it was because I'm a clever enough guy. And I have taught myself plenty and I've learned from a lot of different people. But if I'm not motivated, I'm not learning. Right? Because if I'm not motivated, I'm not putting the time and attention into things. And then the learning's just not happening. So it was just a nice, simple flow chart for, okay, I want to do some learning. Here's where I got to start. And I just start there every single time.
I got
so that's all. I just really love the
arm. Like I see that and I just think like that could make a pretty dope tattoo. Actually, that's literally I'm a collector of them, and I haven't gotten a tattoo for a while. Although my mom, God bless her heart, she picked me up at work today and she gave me she drove me home from work because I don't drive. She's like, I'll be around and that way you won't have to take the bus. I'm like, thanks, Mom. And I knew what was coming next. But she picks me up and there's the back seat has 4 bags of groceries in it, and then and she passed me an envelope. And then you need some walking around money too. It's like, geez, I'm taking it. I'm taking it, and if there's somehow enough in the I could even just get little happy face or something underneath the crow, underneath the bat-winged hourglass, or do a circular version of that that you got there. So, anyways, man, total tangent. It's Friday.
No, that's fine. Yes, it is Friday.
Yeah. It is. Does the time change anytime soon?
I don't know. I literally, I when I took my week off and we left the country, I refused to acknowledge that I was ever coming back, right? Because that's how I enjoy holiday time, right? My attention is on the holiday. I live for every moment of it. And then when I get back, I don't look at any of those other things. Like I knew Halloween was going to come, and then I knew Remembrance Day was going to come. And then Xmas is coming someplace, and New Year's Day is coming. But those other things, they'll happen when they happen. So I have a couple of more pictures that are there. So for the readers,
good choices in those pictures, by the way. Yes, good, some very quality ones.
I like to leave them as an Easter egg, so that like a little go look at the website, and that's kind of where my brain was anyway.
Sure, man.
And hopefully they're a little touching and a little nice.
The first one. How about I almost feel like it's more fun to talk about them without talking about them, even rather than saying what it is. But I'll say that beloved cartoon art that you presented is always typically timeless and poignant on lots of levels. And you think, wow, like about an art form, comics as an art form. There's a very, to me, you can actually go like, like the guy who does Garfield, the guy who does Calvin and Hobbes, the guy who does Bloom County, and there's others as well. So I'm seeing that, and I'm like, that's some good pedigree there. It's like kind of seminal. It's within the artistic canon of it, So good choosing, dude. Good curating.
Thanks. I appreciate that. So I have three more things. One is the word of the podcast, which is attention, because that's what we talked about. Phrases of the podcast. It's been a long week. But that's an important part of attention and motivation. Is you got to learn. Learning's hard, right? Like being a lifelong learner is not an easy journey, and sometimes you just get tired. And I'm a big fan of getting a pair of these scissors out and cutting myself some slack. And it's just, I'm tired. So it's one of those things. And then the question of the podcast is, how can we leverage our abilities and technology to help us pay more attention to what we are learning? And we had a brief conversation about that before we started recording. We already covered some options that we're going to have a go with. So that's where I'm at with the whole topic.
That's sick, man. And I mean that in a good way, as per the lingo, and not to deride your general malaise that you're kind of experiencing right now. Thoughts and prayers, man. Like really, thoughts and prayers. I mean that completely unironically. Oh God. Okay. Fuck. Okay. Speaking of attention, I'm just gonna say I said thoughts and prayers, and this is where my mind goes because this is the kind of culture we live in. Mass shooting in Maine, right? Mass shooting, and that's like just next to New Brunswick, right? Actually, that's the closest I've kind of lived to one of that, in a while, and it's still, I don't think they caught the person yet. Okay, sorry, man. We're really going into the weeds here, man.
That's kind of a bummer way to end it. And I haven't been paying attention to the news, so there's stuff I just avoid because I have the privilege to be able to.
I need a filter so I don't even know about that. Yeah, but I'm just like, I said thoughts and prayers, and then because that's what the NRA people, apologists, dickheads, always say. And then that's, right, that happened. In Maine, you're allowed to carry no restrictions on guns whatsoever. And they got a system where the police have to obtain right to even a lengthy process even just to come and take your guns. It's like anyway, amazing. It's an amazing time to be alive. It's almost Halloween. You got any big plans for Halloween before we really go out here?
I do, but they're ridiculous.
That's what I would hope for.
I found a piece of driftwood.
Okay.
I found a piece of driftwood that's taller than me, and it looks just like a wizard's staff. Like I could be the driftwood wizard. And I have like some LED lights that I could put in the top part. Like it's perfect. It's all along a straight, and then there's like this hooked piece at the top that if I was a wizard, there'd be some magical gem in there. And then I thought I could wear my graduation regalia, right? Because they're robes, and I could be some kind of driftwood wizard. I was talking to a coworker about that today, so that might happen on whenever.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. Halloween. And if it does, I want there to be photographic evidence plastered all over the 3 social media, because we follow each other on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. God help us all. Real last thing, have you checked out Threads? Is Threads worth checking out?
I checked it out a couple of months ago, and I don't think it was ready for prime time then, but I know that it's doing better now.
Yeah.
I know it's sped up, but I just haven't taken the time to poke my head back in to see. It's on my phone. Cool. I just never go there.
Oh, and I lost my wallet.
My attention.
I lost my wallet taking a bus. So that's riding the bus. So that's kind of the week that I've had. And I got off. It was the bus, and it was like in kind of the sketchy part of town. And just as it was driving away, I realized my wallet was in that bus as it was driving away. And it was kind of raining, and it was kind of cold. And my bomber jacket, the nice one from Amazon, but it's still from Amazon, so it's made really with torture in Malaysia, I guess, or wherever. And that's when the zipper bust irrevocably. Like it would not keep it, and so it's like I'm kind of walking there, just kind of the rain pelting down. It's kind of billowing out, and it's just I'm in the kind of rougher part of town on the way to the thing, and it's like, yeah, man, it's been a long week, man. It's a good thing it's Friday.
It has. It's been a long week. Yes, it has. I'm glad we both kind of experienced it, so it's not just me dragging things down.
Okay,
but
well,
that's all I got.
It's been good. I've enjoyed this back and forth, man. It's always a pleasure. I'm glad that we're getting back into a more robust tempo. And it's like, oh, well, there was kind of whatever about this one. It's like, well, we're going to do it again next weekend-ish anyway, right? So 7 days or sooner, I would anticipate. So that's a good note to go out on as far as I'm concerned. The real final thoughts here, pal?
Other than I hope everybody has a great Halloween and an All Hallows Eve, and see you next time.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.